So in this video, I'm going to go through proportions with you guys. This is going to be a review on proportions, and we're going to start here on page 16 and go through pages 16, 17, and 18 in this video. All right. Now you are at the point now down below where you see that the calculator with the cancel is gone, which means that at this point calculators are fair game and allowed. So if you don't have your calculator yet, go ahead and have a calculator ready. And I'm going to remind you guys for this top section, when it asks you to determine whether or not the proportion is true or false, all you have to do is either cross multiply or you can divide to get decimals. So here's what I mean. For number 1, you have a 5/16, and we want to know if it equals 12 out of 39. If it does equal it, the proportion is true. If it doesn't, the proportion is false. All right? So when you multiply 5 times 39 in the calculator, when you cross multiply, we get 195. Now when you clear your calculators and you multiply 12 times 16, you're going to get 192. So since the cross products are different, we know that they are not equal, so that is a false statement. Now for the next one, again, when you cross multiply, we get different numbers, so that's false. And for the third one, when you cross multiply the 2 times 2, 16, we get 432. And when you cross multiply 48 times 9, you get 432. So since we get the same answer there, that one would be considered true. So you're going to have to do 4, 5, and 6 on your own. I'm not going to give you the answers there, but I've reviewed how you can get true or false with this. What I meant by divide to get decimals, if I get my calculator back out, if I do 5 divided by 16 in the calculator, as a decimal, this side would be 0.3125. You could do 12 divided by 39 in the calculator and see that that decimal is different. So once again, you've proven that they're not equal, and that'd be false. So with your calculator, folks, it's up to you if you want to multiply and multiply, or if you want to divide and get the decimals, totally up to you. All right, now for questions 7 and 8, where we want to solve a proportion for the unknown. Well, we know that 3 times 8 is 24, and so we want to know 6 times what would also equal that same 24. So that's the second method where you cross multiply and divide. If 3 times 8 is 24, 6 times what is 24, and when you divide, you get 4. Okay? Now, a lot of you wouldn't even need to cross multiply and divide. A lot of you could quickly catch the scale factor, and you can see that 3 would have to double to get 6. So 4 would be the answer that doubles to be 8. So it's up to you. You can use either the scale factor or just cross multiply and divide to solve for x. The x is not always in the numerator. Sometimes it's in the denominator. That doesn't change what you can do. You can still see a scale factor here. From 5 to 10, it would double. So 9 times 2 would be 18. You could also cross multiply for method 2, and 10 times 9 is 90. Now divided by the 5, and you get 18. Now for 9 and 10, I don't have the answers here for you, but I am going to walk you through how to set it up. Now with the word problem, you just got to ask yourself, what are you comparing? For number 9, Maria can read 15 pages in 20 minutes. So I'm comparing the number of pages that she can read in the number of minutes that have gone by. And I've taken the 15 out of 20 and written it there. Now I'm going to use that proportion to make a prediction. I want to know how long it will take Maria to read 180 pages. Now, if pages is in the numerator, I'm going to put the 180 in the numerator with pages, and the unknown, the amount of time it will take her, is down here in the denominator. So it's up to you to read the problem carefully to figure out what the unknown is and where to put the x. The second word problem we hear also has the unknown in the denominator. I don't want you guys to think that the x is always supposed to be in the denominator. That's not the case. In this one, Jim walks an average rate of 4 miles per hour. So we're comparing how far he can travel in 1 hour. 4 miles per 1 hour. At this rate, how long, so the time, will it take him to walk 10 miles? So 10 is in the numerator. And so at this point, you can cross multiply and divide for these two problems to get your answers to 9 and 10. Now for questions 11 and 12, it's just going through which proportion is true and trying to identify which one was true, and then maybe in number 12 we're now looking for which one is false. So this one is basically back up to these types of questions, where you can either identify a scale factor or just cross multiply and divide. For looking here, which proportion is true, I know it's not A because 3 times 6 is 18 and 5 times 4 is 20. Also, both of these are reduced fractions, and a lot of you guys know that 3/4 is a 0.75, and that is not equal to the 0.83 we get when we divide 5 by 6, so that's not true. Now for C, what I did notice is that if I do 5 times 7, I get 35, and 8 times 7 is a 56. So this is a true proportion where the numerator and the denominator were impacted by the same scale factor of 7. For number 12, if you're asked to identify which proportion is false, once again, cross-multiplying or identifying a scale factor or dividing to get decimals are all options. And I've shown here that when you cross-multiply for A, you get 180, so that's a true statement. B, when we cross-multiply, I get a 450 and a 460, so that's why we've selected that one is false. For answer choice C, the numerator and the denominator are both times 3 to get 21 and 45. And for the last one, we have a scale factor of 4. 9 times 4 is 36, and 25 times 4 is 100. So that would be true. So page 16 here is really just a good mixed review on like how to use proportions and just solve. Now we're going to start to apply this skill and see some word problems. If you want to pause the video at any point, folks, and just try these problems on your own, feel free. The video is here to just help guide you and walk you through the answers since we're studying for the SOLs, and I didn't want to leave you guys hanging on any of these types of problems. Now up top, questions 1, 2, 3, and 4, I'm not even going to go through those. You get those answers again by just cross multiplying and then dividing. So 13 times 8 divided by 2. 9 times 90 divided by 6. 40 times 60 divided by 30. And 14 times 140 divided by 56. Now the next section, it got kind of cut off here. It says find each unit rate. A unit rate, y'all, is just like per one of something. So if you can get 384 miles on 12 gallons of gas, the unit rate is how many miles can you go per 1 gallon, okay? So what we're comparing here is miles and gallons, so miles and gallons, and we know that we can get 384 miles out of 12 gallons of gas. So we want to know how far we could go on just 1 gallon of gas. And so when you cross multiply and divide here, I'll show you guys in the calculator, 384 times 1 is just 384. And now I'm just going to divide it by the 12. And I should have right here, let me fix this. This is a 32 miles per gallon. Okay. All right, now for number 6, if we're trying to see 413 miles in 7 hours, we want to know how far you would get per 1 hour. That would be the unit rate. So if you can go 413 miles in 7 hours, how far could you go in 1 hour? Sorry about that interruption, the bell rang. But for this one, the 413 times 1, when I now divide it by 7, we get the 59 miles per 1 hour of travel time, okay? Now for these two questions, which one is a better buy? I really don't think you're going to see one like this on the SOL. I wanted to review that depending on where you put the X, you're going to kind of get different answers out of this. It's going to give you the same conclusion at the end of it, but it'll just show you for different reasons why. If we want to know between getting 150 sheets of paper for $3.30 or 200 sheets for $3.80, when you set up a proportion, if you put the X here, what you're basically saying is, if I can get 150 sheets for this much money, 1 sheet of paper would cost me how much money? So you could do the 200 sheets for $3.80, 1 sheet at this price would be how much money? And if you set it up that way, when you cross multiply and divide, in the calculator, 1 sheet at this rate would be this much money, and 1 at this rate would be this much. So 1 sheet of paper is cheaper with this option than it would be with this option, which makes it a better deal. What you could also do, instead of figuring out how much 1 sheet of paper would cost, you could figure out how many sheets of paper you would get for $1, And if you flip-flop the X and the 1, it would just simply tell you how many sheets of paper you get for $1. And you would still see that over here, you'd get more paper for $1. With this one, this example, notice that I now have the X up here. So the second thing that I just mentioned, trying to figure out how much you'd get for $1, if you put the X up here, that's what it does. And for this example over here, for $1, you could either get 7.41 ounces or only 7.04 ounces. And so right here, you're going to get more for that $1, and that's why this one is a better buy. For the next question here, the table shows the number of hours and the total amount of money that each of 4 people earned in one weekend. So we've got Gary, Tara, Lamar, and Daria. And we figure out here how much each one earned in a weekend. And it also lists how many hours each person worked. So if you take the $37 that Gary earned and divided it by the 4 hours, we could see that he earned $9.25 per hour. So we're going to do that same step for each person, just divide how much they made by how many hours they worked, and we can compare here how much they made per hour. And we can see here that Daria is making the most money per hour at $9.30. If it's $46.50 for 5 hours, it's $9.30 for 1 hour, and so she's making the most money. All right, for the next setup, this graph shows the number of notebooks that one could buy. How many notebooks could you buy for $12? So over here with the table of values, we can see that 2 notebooks right here costs $3, and I have that in the table of values. We're also given that 4 notebooks would cost $6. So here, if I keep the pattern going, I'm going 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And over here, I'm just going to increase it $3 each time. Now the first question asks us, how many notebooks could we buy for $12? So over here, I see the $12 would be 8 books. Now I'm going to prove that to you guys with a proportion because that's the whole point of this part of the review. But I just wanted to see or point out that we could see our answer right here, that it should be an 8. Now, we are actually given 2 pieces of information that we can use. You can use the fact that 2 notebooks cost $3 to figure out how many notebooks you could get for $12, or you could use the 4 notebooks for $6 to figure out how many notebooks it would be for $12. I see a scale factor right here. 3 times 4 is 12, so 2 times 4 is 8. Over here, your scale factor is 2, and 4 times 2 is also 8. So using our proportion, we can get that 8 notebooks for $12. Now, based on the information in the graph, how much would 9 notebooks cost? So 9 is going to be right here, halfway in between. So if it's halfway in between these values, it's going to be halfway in between $12 and $15. Now with a proportion, once again, if we know from the table of values and the chart right here, if 2 notebooks cost $3, 9 notebooks would cost how much? So our unknown is down here. And for this one, we can just cross multiply because I don't see a scale factor. So 2 times x in the calculator is just going to be 2x. And then 9 times 3 in the calculator is 27. So when you multiply 9 times 3, you get 27. Now just divide it by the 2. And that's how I got that 9 notebooks would cost $13.50. All right, let's move on. And now we're on page 18. And this is going to be the last page that I go through with you guys in this video. So once again, still working with proportions. Up top, number 12, we have that the table of values shows a growth of a strain of a virus over a certain period of hours. So it looks like as more time goes on, there's going to be more cells of the virus because the virus is spreading. So what we want to know is if 5 hours have gone by and there are 3,000 virus cells, and 9 hours have gone by, it's now grown to 5,400. 12 hours have gone by, it's now grown to 7,200 cells. If 15 hours have gone by, how many virus cells will there be? So the first thing I did was I just picked the first fraction. If 5 hours gives us 3,000 virus cells, 15 hours is how much? You could also pick the 9 and 5 5400. For the last one, I picked 12 out of 12 hours with 7,200 cells. You can still use the 15 over the x. My point is it doesn't matter which one of these ratios you use as the first ratio. You're going to get the same answer no matter what when you cross multiply and divide. So I am going to have you guys cross multiply and divide to get this answer. I'm not going to provide it in the video. I do want you to take that step. And then you're also going to do that same thing that we just reviewed here for number 12. You're going to apply that over here for number 13, and you're going to find these two answers and put that in the Google form. Okay? Now for number 14, this is me now reviewing with you guys at this point how to take from the word problems some of the stuff and create a proportion. Okay? In number 14, in each bunch of balloons that she puts together, Trudy uses 3 red balloons and 4 white balloons. So for every 3 red balloons, she uses 4 white balloons. If she uses 36 white balloons, how many red balloons will she use? So 36 was down here in the denominator with white. So what I can do now is check for a scale factor or cross multiply and divide. I quickly catch that 9 times 4 is the 36. So I'm just going to do 3 times 9, and that's where I got the 27 red balloons. Now this next example is a jewelry store example, and we are given that John's Jewelry Store is selling 7 handcrafted silver beads for only $2.49. So I've got beads compared to how much money it's going to cost, and 7 beads would cost $2.49. Now Abby has $10 to spend, and it says using N to represent, so I'm just going to change this to an N now. Using N to represent the number that she can buy, we're going to write a proportion that we can use to solve to find N. So if she can buy 7 for $2.49, right here, N for $10, and that's going to be the proportion that we work with for the rest of the problem. All right. How can we use this proportion to estimate? Well, we can use this current cost to make a prediction to see how many beads can be purchased with this $10. That's like the whole point of what we're doing here. So now, to explain what we're getting ready to do, we just cross multiply the 7 times the 10, and then we divide it by the $2.49. Now in the calculator, we're going to get like a 28.112. And the reason we want to round down here is because that means she'll be able to afford 28 of the beads. If we round up, even though the decimal wouldn't even do it, but if we did round up 29 beads, she wouldn't have enough money for that. Okay. Now to check in the calculator, I just want to point out that 28 beads, let's see, if 7 costs $2.50, 28 would cost how much? So 7, sorry, real quick, let me actually cancel out. I don't care about that. We don't need to worry about that. We don't need to worry about that. We're good to go. All right, now for the last one. This is important to review, and if you're still watching this video, this is a good thing that you're watching the video for number 16. There are 45 members in an Explorers Club, and we're given that the ratio of girls to boys in the club is 8 to 7. That's the ratio of girls to boys. So that means that for every 15 kids, 8 of them are girls. When I compare, I've got 8 girls for every 15 total people. I can use that to then try to figure out how many girls are in the club. If 8 out of every 15 people are girls, how many out of the total 45 members would be girls? And once again, you can just cross multiply and divide. 8 times 45, and then divide by 15, and we'd get that 24 are girls. What that means then, if there are 45 people total, and we know that 24 of them are girls, that means we're going to have 21 boys. So let me fix this. That means we have 21 boys and 24 girls. All right, and let me actually white this out because I'm noticing that I made a mistake when I made my key. And so I'm just going to white it out real quick and do the rest of this problem with you guys. It might not be 1-to-1. I had the wrong number there, so let me just fix this real quick. Yay. Okay. So we've got that there were 24 girls and 21 boys, and that makes up all 45 people in the club. And now the next part says, if 2 girls and 3 boys join the club, what would become the new ratio of girls to boys? So if I add 2 girls, I've got 26 girls. Now if I add 3 boys to that, I've got 24 boys. So the new ratio, we're now comparing 26 to 24. And so now when I divide these by 2, I get 13 twelfths. So that means the new ratio is 13 twelfths. And how did we find that answer? We simply added 2 to the total number of girls. We added 3 to the total number of boys. And then we just basically compared and reduced the ratio. So that concludes the video on using proportions to solve for unknowns. There is a Google form for pages 16, 17, and 18. In the video, I've walked you through a lot of the responses, but there are a handful of questions throughout where I didn't give you guys the answers, and it's going to be up to you to be able to submit those in the Google form. Okay? All right, thank you.